Okay guys, let's roll. Before we talk about the sad death of the British paratrooper killed in Ukraine, I'd like to show you an image. There, that one. Those are paras there. That's what they look like. They look like young boys, don't they? They do to me now. My mother, on the right is my brother, the one in the paras, 7th RHA. I think I told you before that my place up the valleys, or my mother's and father's place, was like a military barracks. You either had a house full of paras staying there with one of my brothers, or you had the Navy there when I was home on leave, or you had the infantry, or some guys from a missile regiment staying there. Fabulous times. And how my parents put up with it all, I don't know, but they were wonderful parents. My brother's the one in the check shirt. He's living on the top of Snowdon somewhere up in North Wales. Wonderful painter. Who'd have thought a para would be a painter, an artist? They can see they liked to drink there, didn't they? They were having a good time. Well, that's what this British para should be doing instead of lying dead. Lance Corporal George Hooley enjoying a pint with his dog Mabel. Instead, he died in Ukraine. He should never have been in Ukraine. It's no good our government saying that he was there just working on this, that or the other. It doesn't matter if he was only sweeping a broom in the middle of nowhere. He should not have been in Ukraine. Ukraine is a war zone, and by having British soldiers there in Ukraine, we have become part of that war, whether we like it or not. Let's see what it says. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, how on earth did he get knighted? I think it's time to abolish the honours list. It's been debased. Pay tribute to the 28-year-old paratrooper, saying he had lived a life full of courage and determination. And Starmer and the warmongers threw their life away. He served our country with honour and distinction around the world, and I'm sure he did. In the cause of freedom of democracy, he did, until he got sent to Ukraine. Then he shamed our nation on the orders of our warmongering government. Lance Corporal George Hooley didn't die for freedom and democracy. He died to enrich the global arms dealers and try and sustain the crumbling New World Order and the global elite. I'm going to make a call now so you can remember it. I've thought this since 2016, 2017, that one day America under President Trump and Russia under President Putin would align themselves to destroy the New World Order and the global elite, the ones who sit atop the pyramid. Whether it's 5 families or 13 families, they will be brought down. Now, you can scroll down, read the rest of the article yourself about what a wonderful character the Lance Corporal was. And looking at that image, I bet he was great fun to be with, because every one of those paras were wonderful. In fact, one of them married a local girl. Prettiest girl in the village she was, actually. Beautiful children. What a waste of a life. Now let's go over here and see what Russia has to say about this. Pay particular attention.
In Britain, once again I repeat, the presence of British military personnel in Ukraine should not be a secret to anyone. And if we are going to hear and see these surprise exclamations, it will testify to the fact that propaganda is raging in Britain.
You don't think it was by accident, do you, that the UK prevented access to Russian news agencies? The last thing they wanted you to learn was the truth about the reasons for why Russia was forced to intercede in Ukraine. No, what they wanted was to see everybody putting up the Ukrainian flags. The reason this war continues now is because of Boris Johnson and the global elite who want this war to continue. They're making too much money. They need the war to continue, and they don't care how many Ukrainians die whilst the war goes on.
Which does not allow British subjects to know the truth about their own compatriots. Here is what is interesting. We have repeatedly heard from official figures in London that allegedly British subjects serving as military personnel are present in Ukraine, but supposedly they are performing only a limited range of tasks, literally a direct quote, including guarding the British diplomatic mission in Ukraine, training and equipping the armed forces of Ukraine. They say that they are not allowed to do anything else bad.
Right, some of us remember the Vietnam War, when the Americans went in there after the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the false flag that justified the Vietnam War, cost hundreds of thousands of lives, maybe millions. The Americans went in there first, just a handful. It's just a handful. They just advise us. They won't be fighting. Now we're seeing the same playbook being used here in the UK. All of a sudden, white boys are going to be flavour of the month again because this government will want them to go and die. No, that ain't going to happen.
However, the aforementioned statement by Starmer put everything in its place. This is the first time that the British authorities have publicly confirmed the fact of the death of their active duty servicemen during the Ukrainian conflict. At the same time, the head of the British cabinet pompously declared that this so-called Hooley had allegedly been helping Ukraine in its struggle for freedom. We would like details from them. These details will undoubtedly emerge, but London must honestly admit what exactly was this so-called Hooley of theirs doing there. It gives the impression that perhaps someone there in the United Kingdom has begun, carefully preparing their country's public opinion. The public opinion in Britain for military losses in Ukraine, losses that will be impossible to simply conceal and hide any longer. Yes, and on this topic, the government of Britain will have to begin speaking with its subjects. I know perfectly well how they do not want to do this on other topics, such as, for example, the crimes of the British in Afghanistan. But we see that over time they are forced to respond to numerous, not only questions, but already requests from law enforcement agencies. What is now beginning to carefully seep into the British tabloids is, it must be admitted, the inevitable consequence of the scenario being considered by the British and a number of their allies to deploy in Ukraine, in the format of the so-called coalition of the willing, an international military contingent, essentially Western occupation forces. It is noteworthy that against this background, the British media are saying exactly that. And they are saying, a direct quote from the same source, the first British active duty serviceman has died in the Ukrainian conflict. Just in case, I would like to warn British journalists that he is not the first. Another matter is how they on Downing Street will wriggle out of this topic. I would also like to warn them that if attempts are made to implement the criminal plan involving a coalition of the willing, responsibility for the lives of the subjects of the United Kingdom will rest entirely on London.
Let's look at that again. Responsibility for the lives of the subjects of the United Kingdom will rest entirely on London. They're talking about you, they're talking about me, they're talking about our children and our grandchildren. The global elites on their islands, they don't care about you, they don't care about me, and they don't care about their families. All they care about is retaining power over us. They'd rather rule over a pile of ashes than surrender their power.
The United Kingdom will rest entirely on London. Our position is well known. Any foreign contingents in Ukraine will be regarded as legitimate targets for the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And let the British government not deceive its subjects and not label those it sends into Ukrainian territory as mere advisors or instructors who allegedly have no connection or relationship whatsoever to the state of Great Britain. No, this is not true. They have connection in the most direct relation. They carry out the direct instructions of the British government in the corresponding British structures and agencies for carrying out sabotage acts, terrorist attacks, extremist tasks. That is their job. And the client is, of course, official London.
Well, there you go. The New World Order, the global elite, the arms dealers. That's who you died for, George. Why do you think President Trump is trying to separate America from NATO? NATO is trying to push for a war against Russia, knowing that should Russia attack one of the NATO countries, America must enter the war. You might not know this, but the Americans were forced into the First World War after staying out of it for many years by an early form of the global elite. You know, the ones at the top of the pyramid. They forced America into the First World War. They provoked the war between Japan and America. You just got to go and study your history. Anyhow, guys, a brave man is dead. No one doubts his courage. But just obeying orders to go and fight in Ukraine, that's not an order I would obey. Anyhow, respect, soldier. You've been listening to Paul Morris, The Green Arrow. See you on the next one.